Hi and welcome to my part 5 of the journey into blind solving. A couple weeks ago I uploaded the part 4 of this series, and in fact I was expecting it to be the last part, or at least the last part for a very long time, but it turns out that it's not, and well, I guess I have to make it part 5 because of that. So a few days after I uploaded the part 4, I went and competed at the European Championships. Now it's not a coincidence that I uploaded part 4 right before it. In fact, I had to rush quite a bit to get the part 3 and part 4 done and uploaded before I had left for my trip, because I didn't want to make it and then not be able to upload it or to finish it, and then, something happens at Euros. Because you never know what can happen at those competitions. And it seems that my intuition was pretty much justified. My goal for blind at Euros was to get something around a 22 single and a sub 30 mean or something of the sort. At the time I was averaging about 24, and in competition I was pretty bad. If you look at the last few competitions, I was averaging maybe 27 or 28, and maybe the best single I got was a 26. I'd gotten maybe a few 30s, and so my track record wasn't all that good going into this competition. Now there were 3 rounds. I was hoping not to DNF one of the rounds and not make it in the final. And so I thought that 22 was a pretty reasonable goal, something that I got pretty often. Sometimes there were rounds in competitions where I did very well in blind, because often, or maybe not often, but sometimes, I get nervous and I memorize very quickly. And then during execution when I'm nervous, often I turn very fast as well. Now, I'm not always the most efficient when that happens. Often I just go ahead and use Old Pochman for cases that I know how to do with 3 style. That's happened at many previous competitions. But now I was more comfortable with my 3 style, so that probably wasn't going to happen. In any case, in the first round of 3x3 blindfolded, I did my first solve and I got a 21, which was already better than my goal, and so I was very happy with that time. The scramble was relatively easy, but I was still happy. I got my goal, and now I was able to not worry about that for the other solves. Now on the second solve, I got a 22. So that was quite something, because that meant that I would be able to get a pretty good mean, right? Definitely achieve my goal for my mean. Now also, when I was done that, I remember joking around in the competitor waiting area that I just got a 21 and a 22, which was great. But you know what? I only need a 19 to get a world record average. Of course, I wasn't serious at all. Really, what I was expecting to get was maybe 29 or a DNF, because at that point my heart was pounding, because I knew that I had a good start for a good mean. But it just makes you so nervous. So I went up for the third solve, and the scramble was pretty good, and the solve was pretty solid. I was nervous, so of course I memoed faster than usual, but I was able to turn really fast, and because the scramble wasn't all that bad, it ended up being a pretty good solve. Now, because my heart rate was going so fast, maybe time seemed to feel like it was going a little slower, and when I was done the solve, it felt like it was just maybe a 23 or something like that. It was good, but it was a really good mean, but like not that amazing. And I took off my blindfold and I saw that it was a 19, and that moment was just crazy. Because, I joked about it, but I never thought it was actually going to happen. And also something funny is that I said 19, but I didn't really think about that number. It was just, an unrealistic, but, sort of realistic number. I knew that the world record was 21 point something. I didn't know 21 point what. So I celebrated thinking it was a world record. And then I checked, and the world record was actually 21.24, and I got 21.18, so it was really close. But in any case, this world record was very different from the previous world records that I had broken. Partly because it was so unexpected. Personally, I would never have expected that I would have gotten, the world record mean at this competition. In fact, it would have seemed a lot more likely I would have gotten the single. And especially coming from, well, for everyone else, nobody would have expected me to get the world record mean for blind. Pretty much everyone that I talked to afterwards was really confused. They congratulated me and they're like, "What? I didn't know that you did blind." Good job, though, you know? But something else that was very different between this world record and the previous world records that I've broken is just the uncertainty about it. Because I got the world record. Well, I mean, I, I broke the world record. Now, you may or may not say that I got it, but I definitely broke it because it was faster than the previous one. So I broke the world record. And first of all, I wasn't actually sure if it was faster than the average. I was celebrating as if it was, but I wasn't really sure. And then after I knew that the time was actually faster, I had my 5 minutes of glory, and then the delegate or the team leader, Laura, asked me if I could show her the camera footage so that we can make sure that there were no missed scrambles. And that was at that point that I started really worrying about the world record. So we checked it, and it was really stressful, but it turns out that it was good. So I was happy about that, but then I realized that, there were other people competing that day. And I was really nervous about that for the rest of the day, because I didn't, I knew that I expected to lose it within a week at US Nationals, but I wanted to at least have the title, at least have it for the day. So I checked, and I saw, Jeff Park and Max Hillard were competing, and Kaijin just competed, but didn't do that well. Could have done really well. So I was really nervous about that, but then the next morning I checked and I saw that not really good, but none of them, neither Jeff or Max had gotten a world record. And then, so I was very relieved that I had at least gotten it for one day. But then after that, in the blind final, I really didn't care. The scrambles were really bad, but I was trying to get a really good single. I got 3 DNFs, but it didn't matter because I had gotten a world record in blind, And then after the competition, during the dinner, I heard that Jeff Park had gotten the world record average, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what? And then I heard that it was actually on an extra from the day before, and then that's when my heart stopped, and I realized that I was never officially going to have the world record because it happened in the same day. So for me, it was it was devastating. But of course, he deserved it much more than me. But something that is very strange about this particular world record, it's not the competitor's fault, and it's not really anyone's fault. It's more of the scrambler's fault. Because everything was conducted as it should have been in the regulations. So essentially what happened in Jeff Park's 3x3 blind mean world record that he had taken from me, or that I had never technically gotten and then he got, is that he did his first solve and it was a 20, and then he got a DNF on his second one, which was a 29, I think, or something like that. And at first he was, of course, trying to get the mean, or I assume he was trying to get a mean. But then he got a DNF, and so at that point he knew that it was impossible for him to get the blind mean world record. And so on the last one, the only thing that he could really do that was advantageous to him was to go as fast as possible so that he might have a chance of getting the single world record. Because if he DNF'd it didn't matter anymore at all, because he had no chance of getting the mean, and he already got a 20, whatever. And so on the last one he went really fast and he got a 17. Now, that was the world record single, in fact. And then after that, he looked at his camera footage and he realized that the second solve was indeed a missed scramble. And so what happens at that point is that you get an extra. But now, at this point, it is a very, very different mindset than when he had originally done his solves. So when he originally did that second one, he was still going for a mean. And so he was trying to, get it. It has to be fast enough. It had to be a relatively good solve in order to get the mean. But then when he redid it, he knew that he already had a 20 and a 17. So he could get the world record mean even with a bad solve, even with something like a 24. And so at this point, yeah, the mindset is completely different. And so he went a little slower, I guess, just to be a little safer. Now, I haven't actually talked to him about it, so I don't know exactly if this is what happened, but on his last solve he got a 23, which was enough to get a 20 point okay, I don't know what it is, 20.34 maybe, world record mean. So there is a bit of I guess, questionable morality as to those solves, just because of the way in which they were done is not the same thing as someone else like me would have done. Since on the last solve there would have been way less pressure. Well, on both last solves, in fact. But he deserves it more than me. So that's that. And it's not really something that I was expecting to get anyways. And I'm still second in the world, and in my heart, I still got the world record, and I still did break the world record, even if it's not officially recognized. Now, where do we go from here? What does getting a world record actually mean for me? So first of all, I think that getting a world record for me is maybe a little more of a bad thing. Because first of all, it really raises the expectations. It makes people think that I am a lot faster than I actually am. I do not average 21.3 overall. That is just not a thing. The scrambles were easy and the times were good. That's the fact of the matter. And that creates, as I said, a false expectation. And something else that it does is that it doesn't really motivate me to practice, because I already have great results, and those are results that will take a lot of time to beat. And so it might not necessarily be worth it to put the effort into it. And that's not something that's intentional on my part. I think it's more of a subliminal something that goes through my mind. In fact, since I came back from Euros a few weeks ago, I haven't really done any blind. Now, that is partly because I'm very busy planning things for my upcoming exchange. Also because my left wrist has really been hurting me in the last week. But just because I know that I already have those good times, it's not that motivating to put in all that effort and then just go and compete and get worse times than the times that I already have. Now, this is in fact similar to what had happened with me for one-handed. When I got my 10.87 average, for example, that was faster than my overall average at home, and I had stopped practicing for a little while. I think my wrist hurt at that time too, and so every single average that I did at home was way slower than my official PB, and that is not motivating at all. And at this point, like for me right now, for blind, there's a lot of things that I have to learn. So that is a certain motivation. I know that there is a clear path forward. I know I can learn a lot more algs, and I know that my memorization needs a lot of improvement, and I know how I can improve it. It's just the time and the effort that I have to put into it. So I think that pretty much sums up my current thoughts, my current journey in blind. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Now, you never know, maybe I'm going to end up having to make a part 6. Maybe I'm going to be competing a lot this fall, maybe I'm going to get a lucky single after having practiced a lot of time in a plane, so maybe I'll be able to learn some algs there or put in a lot of practice, who knows. So thank you for watching this video, thank you for following me along in my blind journey, and let's see if I can see you next time in a part 6.